Hi, in today's class, we'll be talking about, as part of our holistic nutrition series, we'll be talking about genes and genetic determinism, role of genes in manifestation of lifestyle diseases, and what to do when somebody have like genetic propensity for hypercholesterol um, or obesity. So can we do something about it? What exactly are genes? And what is their function, how do they regulate different kinds of diseases, and new studies or new discoveries that are happening in the field of genes called epigenetics. Okay, so today about genes and epigenetics. Okay. So as dietitians, we all know that when we see some of our clients, so they always say that my parents are obese, and that's the reason why I am obese. I am not able to. I mean, I tried so many things. I went to gym and did all these things. And since my father had diabetes, and I'm more prone to get diabetes. We hear this a lot, and we don't know what to say when people give that excuse for not following diet. So, as a mind-body nutritionist, you need to understand, at least be confident on the basics on genes and what do they do. So, when it comes to the matter of genes, people assume that it is hereditary. So, the one word that comes strongly with genes is like hereditary. So, when we talk about hereditary, let's talk about Darwin. So what Darwin proposed was, so some traits passed on from one generation to the next generation. So what is that carrying molecule or carrying substance from one generation to another generations? So this led scientists to look for that hereditary material in an individual cell. So that individual cell, when you look at a cell, right, let's say this is a cell, and usually when the cell is dividing, okay, and forms a new baby cell, the chromosomes are divided inside of the nucleus. So it is dividing, and while happening so, the chromosomes are also dividing, right? So the chromosomes are separated, and it is one of the largest cell organelle in forming a new baby cell nucleus. Let's say this divided into two baby cells. Okay, now two baby cells, and we have two large nuclei inside with this thing. So they observed, they looked into the nucleus and saw and identified these chromosomes. And the chromosomes, when they separated this chromosome, they identified DNA. So this DNA formed the basis of hereditary. So how do you prove that genes or these chromosomes or this DNA is actually carrying traits from one generation to another generation? So they did some different kinds of experiments. Experiments like, let's say, there is one species A. Okay, so this is species A and this is species B. And now, let's say bacteria. Both of them are bacteria. Bacteria A and bacteria B. So from bacteria A, they removed all this DNA, extracted pure DNA from this group, and injected this into a culture of species B bacteria. And over a period of time, slowly the B started exhibiting the characteristics or traits of A. Okay, now they almost like, I mean, tests like this were designed and conducted and concluded that yes, through DNA the hereditary traits are passed on. Okay, then they looked at the structure of DNA. Looked at the structure of DNA, we all know the structure of DNA is a double helix. Okay, you take a ladder and you twist it, that is the shape of DNA. So Watson and Crick discovered the shape of DNA, we all know that. And the beauty of the DNA is that the double helix is like exact mirror copy of each other. Let's say this is a double helix. Okay. Now, if you look at these base pairs, so one side it is a double helical. So just like if you look at a zip and try to unzip it, so both the sides are identical or mirror images. So this is exactly like the opposite. So what they proposed was, if during cell division, if it becomes two, separated, divided, one copy can actually make another copy of this thing. This is how the cells divide and both get the complete set of DNA, new cells. What is the implication in this? The implication is that the DNA is able to do it on its own. The moment it divides, it is making another copy of it. So this makes some kind of this a supermolecule. DNA, a supermolecule on itself. So that from there, the concept in mid 50s and all this time when the gene study was at its peak. So people started believing in that DNA is the one which determines the activity of an individual or the heredity or the traits of an individual. So that's how it actually started. So since then we have the firm understanding of genes that genes determine a person's health or disease. So this is called genetic determinism. Okay. So genetic determinism means our genes dictate our biology. So that's what genetic determinism means. So yes, it is partly true because we are able to identify genes for specific diseases. Say for example, thalassemia is a genetic disorder. Down syndrome is a genetic disorder. Some kind of Huntington's chorea and other kinds of cystic fibrosis, for example. We have a gene for that. So the defective gene lead to a particular disease. So there is genetic determinism. Now, the question is, if it is determined by genes, how do we answer? I mean, how far is this true? I mean, we have to question two things here. One, whatever they have proposed, is it 100% true? Right? Is it a proposition or just like it is a principle? Okay, it is a hypothesis or it is a proven fact. So that's what we need to understand. Second thing is, let's see the structure of DNA or the structure of genes or chromosomes or whatever we would like to call it. Look at the structure of these genes and what is the function, and if you look at the function of the actual gene and how it operates and try to come to this and how they are able to determine a person's health or disease state. Okay, we'll go step by step. I hope this is clear. I mean, what we discussed till now is how DNA or genes or chromosomes, both are same, all are same. So we'll come to that next. How, for discussion sake, let's say DNA. How DNA is considered or a gene is considered to be deterministic. Deterministic in the sense is deciding the physiology of an individual. How the concept evolved over a period of time, and with the discovery of structure of double helical nature and DNA able to replicate on its own, so the theory solidified, and till now most of the people believe that there is a gene for every disease. Only thing is we need to identify that particular gene. This is how what we discussed till now. But now what we are going to do is we want to test this hypothesis, okay, and we would like to explore. I mean, are there any other ways that those genes, I mean, can be tuned to our advantage, to our client's advantage? And before doing that, let's see the function of a particular gene. Okay. Now, if you look at a cell, okay, in the center we have nucleus, and so this is nucleus of the cell, living cell, and in this we have the genetic material called chromosome. Yes. So in human beings we have exactly 23 pairs of chromosome, that is 46. Now these chromosomes usually they look like this. Okay, exact replica of. So these chromosomes are made up of two things. This chromosome is made up of, one is DNA plus some proteins. Okay, DNA plus protein. So these proteins are called histones, right? Okay. Now, if we look at the structure of DNA, the structure of DNA is like that of a double helix. Like that of a double helix. So, right? So, now cell body, in that we have nucleus. Nucleus contains chromosomes. Chromosomes are made up of DNA plus protein called histones. And if you look at DNA structure is double helical, like a ladder twisted. And this DNA is made up of one ribose sugar, that is pentose, and a phosphate, and base pair is called ACTG. Okay. So these base pairs they form the DNA. So now, what is a gene? A segment, a part of DNA strand. Let's say from here to here. These base pairs, this particular length of DNA, if is determining a particular trait or a characteristics, or let's say called producing a protein. So this is called a gene. So gene is a part of chromosome of our DNA of a certain length coding for a particular protein or a trait. So now, what is the function of this particular system? This sequence is covered by the proteins, the histone proteins that cover the DNA material. Together it is called chromosome. Chromosome lies in. Okay. So now, what is the function of a gene? Right? What is the function of a gene in a cell? So we all know that cells do different functions. Yes or no? Yes. Cells do different functions. A single cell is doing different functions. What are different functions? Say for example, energy production. Okay. Or digestion. respiration, excretion. Okay, bacteria are single-celled organisms, and our body is also made up of single functional units. Let's take any cell of our body. These cells are doing all these things. Okay, say for example, what is digestion? Here is a glucose transport molecule. From here, the internal environment of our body. If this is a cell, there is a capillary supply here. Is it not? This is a small capillary that is bringing in food. Now, this glucose molecule is taken into the system. So, for cell, food is coming in. For our body, whole organism, the food is going through mouth. So, glucose transport molecule is taking in the food. So, the cell is performing digestion. Okay, simplest form of digestion. And this glucose molecule is broken down into carbon dioxide and water, and in this process, energy is released. Is it not? So, it is doing energy production also. And it is taking in oxygen. It is taking in oxygen that is there in the blood and sending out what? Sending out carbon dioxide. It is sending out carbon dioxide. So it is doing respiration also. Whenever the nutrients are broken down, say for example, you are taking ammonia rich, what do you say? It is a protein, amino acid. You break it down and you get ammonia. This ammonia is going out. That is again excretion. So a single cell is doing so many things, right? So it is performing all these things with the help of proteins. With the help of proteins. What is DNA doing or gene doing in our body then? So the function of a gene is basically producing proteins. As simple as that. The function of a gene is producing what? A protein. So, how does it do this particular function? So, this gets stripped into two. Before that to happen, a particular signal molecule. Let's say this cell is a cell of islets of Langerhans. What are they? Islets of Langerhans produce what? Insulin. Right? Is insulin a protein? Yes, insulin is a protein. So, the job of this cell in pancreas, and that too islets of Langerhans cells, the job of this cell is to produce insulin. So, there is a signal, there is a demand from the environment. What is the environment saying? So, you see everywhere there is glucose, glucose, glucose. So, this signal sends a signal, a small protein molecule to the cell, enters the cell, and from there it enters the nucleus and talks to a particular gene. Talks to a particular, let's say this is coding for, this sequence is coding for production of insulin. So, this, with the help of this DNA, sends out a copy of this out called RNA, and this RNA is producing the protein. In this case, the protein is insulin. Okay, so basically this is the job of a gene. Now, if the job of gene is to produce protein, how they are able to control the traits, how they are able to control the traits of an individual. See, we need to understand this, like, let's say in one particular disease, in cystic fibrosis, say for example some kind of disease, for that disease not to happen, a particular area in DNA is defective in producing that protective protein. So all the people who are having that cystic fibrosis have the same kind of gene expressed. So it is either producing or not producing the protective protein, which is resulting finally in cystic fibrosis. Now, if the function of genes is protein, it is not producing that protein without the help of a signal. It is a factory, right? It is a factory and it is sending out a signal. It receives a signal to produce. So in other words, let's try to see this. Basically, human life, in human body, there are approximately 1 lakh proteins and close to 20 to 40,000 regulatory proteins. So if the genes are producing the proteins and proteins form the basis of life, see, everything that we see in a human being,